Hey everybody, what is going on? My name is Juan and I am joined by Keith and Ryan. We're back with the Square Roundtable, and as always, if you twist your neck a little bit, not to the sides, but up above, you can see the topic, which this time it is about invasion angles in wrestling. Something that some people love, some people cannot stand anymore. And let's get right down to it, taking it to you first, Mr. Keith Poshik.
Hello.
Can you talk about your first thoughts or experiences regarding invasion angles? What do you remember about what was your first one like, Keith?
Well, my first time was very magical because I watched the Monday Night War as it happened. So the first one I saw was the NWO Invasion, which I would argue is the best in wrestling history. But I was looking at different angles and doing a little bit of research on this topic, and a real dark conclusion kind of came to me. There's never been a good invasion angle in WWE history, period. Like
when you say WWE,
I'm talking
the company, not
the company. Like
okay.
all of the X group is coming from Y area to try and take over some portion of the company, but there's never been a good one. They've all started out great. They've all started out awesome, but they've all kind of like pittered out at the end. You got, like, think of the WWE, WCW, ECW invasion. Great at first, was a real stinker. You've got the WWECW invasion, which was really awesome for a very long time, but then once it became that third brand, it turned into a stinker. You've got the Nexus, which, great, it was awesome, probably one of the best things in wrestling in a very long time, until the end of it, and it became a stinker. And the trend kind of...
was the core.
The core, right. How could I forget about the core?
How could you?
Two E's, because nobody understands that to this day. But they've all kind of sucked, invasion angles. Like, they all follow the same pattern, and it's kind of unfortunate.
So taking it to you, Ryan, first off, do you agree and disagree with Keith? And then what do you look for in an invasion angle? Like, what is that thing that needs to be there?
So first, I do agree with Keith, is that in an invasion angle, it always starts out interesting just because it's like something kind of comes out of nowhere and people are trying to take over. People are trying to change the system, the status quo.
The tinfoil hat goes crazy.
That's what's kind of intriguing about it. So you kind of look for sort of a surprise factor. And, you know, whoever's invading, they need to be credible. So I think that's important. And I'm just trying to figure out what exactly is it that kind of makes all these invasion angles fail. And I kind of want to ask you guys, is it maybe the fear of committing too much to having too much taken over that makes it fail?
I think the problem is that how many times do we see wrestling doesn't have an off-season? If it had an off-season, I can definitely see, oh, it ends here. Oh, my God, what's going to happen next? But with good old wrestling, it's always like, oh, which one of those guys is going to be the breakout star? Oh, it's that one. Okay, so we got to just sort of kill this off at some point so then Wade Barrett can be the star of the show. Or the ECW invasion, you know, Rob Van Dam in the original one, people had his eyes on him. It was very obvious key people, and I think that's the problem. Everybody just looks for who's the next John Cena, who's the next CM Punk, Stone Cold, whatever you want to call them.
And plus,
what about you, Keith?
at the end of the day, none of it's really had weight to it. Like, at the end of the day, there hasn't really been an invasion that won. Like, it does its thing, it ends up, like, falling back into the fold, and everything is back to normal once it's all over. There's no real weight to the consequence of them winning, because in the end, the WWE or the main company has always won.
WCW's NWO is probably the only one that actually kind of took over. Other than
that wasn't for the better.
Yeah, because it started off great, but once again, that was probably one of the main reasons that WCW died, which was you have this great thing that's never happened before, but at some point you got to pick a guy. And when you're just like, why pick a guy when the whole roster can be the NWO?
Can be there, yeah.
Yeah, so there wasn't that main focus, because for a while, you know, Hulk Hogan just sort of faded away. Then we had the Wolfpack, then we had NWO 2000 at some point, and
The
it just
LWO.
had no focus. Yeah, exactly. It had the LWO just way too much. So the thing that I want to talk about is the Nexus right now, because obviously it's one of the more recent angles that we definitely saw work. Taking it to you first, Ryan. What did you first think of the Nexus? Not just on night one, but the good Nexus. I think we can sort of pinpoint what that was. And then to you, what hurt you as a fan? Not logically, like, oh, Cena beat the Nexus at SummerSlam, but what was your cue as like, I am not caring about this too much anymore?
Well, I mean, it's of course first fascinating just because you had all these guys like these basically nobodies who just came in and just destroyed everything. So day one, you're like, oh man, I got to pay attention to these guys. But the thing was that they didn't keep it going long enough, and just when you kind of hurt that, when you have them kind of lose too quickly, all of a sudden everything just kind of falls apart. I mean, the Shield doesn't really count as an invasion type of group. They're more of a faction. But you look back and in an interview Ambrose had, they were supposed to lose to like John Cena, Ryback, and I think Sheamus at like No Way Out or Elimination Chamber.
Awful.
Something like that, just before WrestleMania. And if you look back and think if they would have lost then, that would have been essentially the end of the Shield. And that's what happened to the Nexus. And like, as much as we want to talk about how like one win or loss sometimes doesn't matter, I think in that situation it really did, and it just kind of killed it.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Ryan. The thing that happened with the Nexus was that the mystique to it wore off very fast. Like it, in a very, very short span of time, it became this, oh, here's a bunch of new guys coming and taking over, to, oh, wait a minute, these are a bunch of new guys. New guys always lose when they first enter the company, right? So then they started going through that, and then the dominant force really fell away very fast, and then they almost like tried to shove Wade Barrett down our throats after a while, putting him in the main event with John Cena and Randy Orton. But it never felt like he fit because of that. So it was a definite giant misstep.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, Ryan, the Shield was more of a faction, but any of the three guys could do anything and you would buy it. With the Nexus, it was always very obvious. That's the one guy, long term, he's the only one that matters. And you look at the roster now, we had the second Nexus, which we got Bray Wyatt, although, different characters. But at the end of the day, it didn't work. Now, quick question. Overall, invasion angles, regardless of if they're, what happens after week one, do you care about them? Like, do you feel like they are a necessity in wrestling?
I mean, they haven't worked before. What's going to make the next one so different? Like, yeah, it's exciting at first, but it just follows a trend. And I don't like if a new invasion angle were to start tomorrow, I don't know that I could be excited for it with this understanding of it now.
I think that it will always be intriguing at first, but so far history has shown that they're not very sustainable. Maybe there's a way to make them sustainable, or at least have them take over for a short period of time or something like that. But like I said, it's very difficult to have them not run out of steam.
And I think the last question, obviously all of these invasion angles, even Nexus, because even though by the time we got Nexus there was social media, it's not as prominent as it is right now in WWE and wrestling. So do invasion angles work now, regardless of if they were good or not? Is there any credible way that you can have, not a faction, not the Shield, but a group of new guys or old guys coming back, and you would buy it as, oh, something new is happening, something different? Or is it done?
That's tough. I don't know if social media would help it or hurt it, because with that wall that social media takes back, at the end of the day, you're just another guy on the road tweeting about this whole angle that you're doing, right? So what would make it so special? What would make it so different? I would almost say like a social media silence would be best for an invasion angle. Just, you're against the company now. You're not going to tweet. You're not going to Facebook, you're not going to Instagram to hype up this feud. You don't want to hype up this feud. Yeah, no hashtag I'm taking over style thing. Just complete social media silence. The only time they can see what's what's being furthered is when you're on the actual show itself. I think that would be more detrimental than a social media, or more good. That's the word.
Good, yeah.
Yes.
I think we're a few years away from it feeling kind of fresh again. It was something that was kind of overdone for a little while. The last one we kind of had was in TNA, probably like Aces and Eights was probably the closest
There's like
thing
100 in TNA we didn't talk about, though.
and that went on for quite a while. And so I think right now, even though there hasn't been an invasion angle in a couple of years, it's still kind of just a tired thing. But, you know, they could find a fresh way to do it maybe in, you know, in like 5 years or so. And maybe they'll figure out a way to do it right. But it's always kind of like it'll spike interest early and fast and then fall pretty fast after that.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned, Keith, in the example of TNA, I mean, how many times, even in Ring of Honor, there was a CCW invasion. So I think that at the end of the day, invasion angles help for one thing, and that is exposure. That's the reason we got the ECW invasion back in the Attitude Era as phase. So, yeah. In summary, invasion angles have never really worked out that well. It's always cool at the beginning. At first, you're like, oh, yeah, something cool's happening, something's awesome. But at some point, they got to choose that guy. And it's cool because we see the future of the company, but then the whole faction or whatever you want to call it that sort of sticks around sort of dies. So for everybody watching, let us know. Are we just horribly off on what an invasion angle is, if it works, and if it's even relevant in today's wrestling? Did the NWO could have survived in some sort of way rather than what we talked about? Let us know by leaving a comment below. Subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of cool stuff. The podcast is available. Okay, come on, guys. Every time we do this, so every 1, 2, 3...
Tuesday! Woo!
Finally, it only took like 8 months to get this to work. So thanks for everybody. Thanks. Damn it, I'm like Keith now. But yeah, thank you for watching this. Ooh. Yeah, what else can I say? Thanks for watching. Check out the other cool stuff right here on the channel. Bye-bye.